Hey everybody, welcome to Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page. On this episode, the chef who, along with his chef wife, recently won a third Michelin Star for their restaurant Smyth in Chicago, while also serving up what's been called that city's best burger. Here's my conversation with Chef John Shields. Chef, how you doing? Thanks for being here.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, first, congratulations on your third Michelin Star.
Thank you very much. It's been quite the year. Things have changed for us big time.
How's that?
Sustained business, really. We were plenty busy before the pandemic, and then as we came back, we gained that stability and then kind of lost it again. Things were a little erratic last year, and then literally overnight, it's been go, go, go.
You had 2 stars for several years.
We did.
Was the third star a goal? I mean, there are some chefs who say no, thank you.
Certainly I wouldn't say no, thank you. But it was never really a goal. I mean, if you look at the place, the restaurant we have, it's more on the casual side. I kind of wanted to bridge the gap a little bit more and be a little more accessible. Michelin has not been in the U.S. for that long. So as a young chef, it was never the goal. It just wasn't even a thought. So when we opened for 6 weeks. They gave us a star. They were quite generous to give us one right out the gate. Then the following year, we got our second. And, I really felt like we were always pushing towards 3. I thought we always had the ability to get 3, but it was never the goal of let's get 3 until actually the year prior. Every year we kind of set out, what are we trying to achieve this time around? We put some positive energy out there and got the team really focused and involved. And the next thing you know, life changed.
You're now the second 3 Michelin Star restaurant in Chicago, the first being Alinea. And Chef Grant Achatz of Alinea was a mentor, was he not?
And he still is. He's always there. Whenever I need him, whenever I needed Nick Kokonis, who was his partner, they've always been there for us, whatever we needed. So it's been huge. That's one of the reasons we came back to Chicago in the first place, was just had this infrastructure of people that were just had your back at all times. And, we're always cheering for you. And my time at Alinea was, life-changing. So,
well, let's work our way to there and then to today. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Tampa, Florida, actually.
Is Tampa a good food town? I mean, there's Burn's Steakhouse, which is legendary.
Sure. I mean, it's growing. It's growing for sure. Obviously Michelin's there now. And it comes down to the clientele. I think it's going to take some time. The crowd is getting younger, first of all, down there. There's a lot of money that's been invested down there. And I was just down there recently, actually kind of peeking around and, thinking about, maybe doing something down there one day. And there's some great restaurants there.
Tampa's an interesting example. Do you think Americans are getting, I hate the word better, but more sophisticated about food, more adventurous about food? Are we eating better? Are we trying to eat better?
Oh, yeah, for sure. All the above, I'd say. You can almost go to any major or sort of smaller market city and you're going to find great restaurants these days, which is pretty cool.
And yet fine dining's in trouble, I'm told.
It always does this sort of, I think, I'm no expert. I haven't been around that long, but I've been doing this for 20 plus years now. And I've seen it kind of ebb and flow. Obviously with the recession in '08, that changed things a lot. But there's trends that follow, and I think for a while there was this huge push for Ferran and things going on in Spain, and then that kind of carry over into the Nordics but yeah, things keep evolving. We're doing okay right now.
Were you interested in food as a kid, or was it Lunchables and Doritos?
Yeah, we grew up with soda and all the crap you shouldn't be eating. Luckily for my mom was into health or eating healthy, and so she kept me on a pretty straight path. But the interest in cooking was not there whatsoever. I remember being 17 and hanging out with this girl I was interested in. We went into her house and decided to make some pasta, and neither one of us knew how to boil water, because that was part of the instructions. Part 1, put a pot of boiling water on, and we both. But
you were interested in the girl, so you pretended.
Exactly, we figured it out eventually.
Okay,
but yeah. But we couldn't look it up online, so we just kind of winged it. So then it was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? It's time to go to college. It's time to take the next step, get serious about life. The Food Network was starting to really grow in its popularity and interest, and I would watch it here to there. And my dad was always cooking. He's not like an exceptional cook, but he's a good cook, and he kind of just threw the idea out there, and I kind of just went with it.
Your dad said if you're looking for something to do, try cooking?
More or less. Yeah, more or less. I was not on a path of great ambition when it comes to academics. I knew I wanted to do something with my hands. I wanted to be physical.
Where did you go to culinary school?
Forest Park College. It's in St. Louis.
Why'd you pick St. Louis?
We're looking to get out of Florida. I wanted to do something different, and there happened to be an opportunity to go there. And then there was a culinary school there, so it was all kind of lining up. I had worked at a couple of restaurants at that point to try it out, and there was a school, an opportunity to go there. And so I said, let's get out of there. You know, a lot of my friends in Florida were not on a straight path, and I was kind of going down some of that path and knew it was time to get out of there. But really what did it, what really set it off was I got fortunate enough to work for a restaurant called Cardwell's.
In St. Louis?
In St. Louis.
Uh-huh.
And there was 2 locations, and it was a chef that had, spent some time working in California, a really smart guy. And I got in the kitchen not knowing anything about anything when it came to cooking other than maybe the Food Network a little bit. And it was just full of recent CIA grads, Johnson & Wales grads. Everyone was serious about it. The work ethic was crazy, and the just from the cleaning to the preparation of the food to the products we were using at that time was just next level, and it really put me on a straight path pretty quick. So again, just pretty lucky.
After St. Louis, you go to culinary school. You're working in excellent training ground restaurant.
Well,
then what?
I dropped out of the school I was going to. I was getting such great training. I went for a year, and I said, I'm learning more here on the job. Maybe I don't want to be in debt too far. I finished up my academics classes, but as far as the culinary side, I just stuck to my working job. But then got the idea, if I want to be really serious about this, I want to go to the CIA. I want to go to the best school in the country. In Hyde Park. And so the plan was to move back home with my mom in Tampa, save some money, and then go to culinary school, go to the best culinary school. That was the kind of the plan. I ended up moving down there, working at this restaurant because they were just paying the most. It was a kind of a new no-name restaurant in St. Petersburg. I got the job there, and
as a line cook, what?
Yep, just a line cook. Yep, just cooking away. And the skills of the chef. He was a good chef for Florida. Him and the owner sort of had a falling out.
I'm stunned that would happen in the restaurant business.
I know, isn't that wild? It's kind of crazy. During that time, I was putting up a lot of specials. I had some Charlie Trotter books, and I was basically just copying and pasting, and maybe putting my little
Charlie Trotter, the famed Chicago chef,
who I worked for too.
But not yet, right?
Not yet. So this was after this. But the chef had a falling out, the owner, and offered me the job to be the head chef, and I was 21 at the time. So I spent the next 4 years running that restaurant, and by the time we were done, it was named by the St. Pete Times and the Tampa Bay Tribune the best restaurant in the Bay Area. So that was pretty cool. And so again, I want to take sort of this step back to say, okay, well, if I can do it here, I want to see if I can do it in the big city. And so that I left the restaurant after 4 years, and the goal was Yountville to work for Thomas. Charlie Trotter was my number one. And then actually I applied to work at a restaurant in New York, took the job, was planning to move to New York. And then a small little crazy moment happened, and I ended up going to Chicago instead. So,
what was the crazy moment?
Well, I accepted the job. I found an apartment. I was going to move up there. I was actually booking a flight, and this was the dial-up day. So I was like waiting for everything to load up. And I was going through my mail, and there was a letter from Charlie. And I had been applying for months and months and months, hadn't heard a thing back. But I kept sending letters. And eventually it was a letter saying, we want to see you in Chicago. We want to have you come stage and trail for a couple of days. But in that moment, it was kind of crazy. It was like, I'm moving to New York City. I'm going to the big city. I'm the Big Apple. This is what I'm doing. And then within an instant, I was like, no, I'm going to Chicago. That was it. I knew it because Charlie for me was like the culinary god.
Okay, so you went to Charlie Trotter's.
Yep.
Still a line cook?
Just a line cook. So yeah, I went from actually making really decent money as a young chef in Florida to making no money at Charlie. I mean, not zero, but more or less zero. After my expenses, it was zero. Maybe negative.
Thank God for those family meals.
Yeah, exactly. Family meals, and mom was helpful here and there when she could be. So that was it. I went there. I took the lowest position they had. It didn't matter to me. He told me what he was going to pay me. I wasn't even listening. All I knew is that this was the path for me.
There is that old expression, never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
What was it like working for Charlie Trotter?
Well, it wasn't like the cookbooks, in a lot of it was in some ways, and a lot of ways, and then in other ways it was just a beast of a restaurant. We did a ton of covers. It was cutthroat for sure, and the environment was tough. It was rough, long days, a lot of mental challenges every day to things that wouldn't fly today. That's for sure. And not like in a hazing way or a negative way, but in a are you strong enough to make it in the world kind of way. So that building that mental toughness, getting through a lot of adversity, a lot of low moments is what I think I take the most from it, to be honest.
The whole traditional French brigade system and chefs yelling and demanding, and look, in many places that included substantially misogynistic behavior. A, did you see that? And B, how's the biz these days comparatively?
I didn't see a lot. There wasn't a lot of crazy yelling. Charlie didn't spend a lot of time in the kitchen day to day. He was definitely there, but just not in the kitchen. So, but his presence was always there. And so that kind of trickled down into the head chefs that ran the kitchen. And, it was a tough place. I saw people yanked off the line who couldn't, pull their weight, and back in the back polishing pipes and cleaning copper pots for the remainder of the evening. So it was rough like that, but there was no screaming really. There was no throwing of anything.
Now, you were there for how many years?
So I was there for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I met Karen, my wife, there at that point. But at that point, we were doing our own thing, dating different people, and it just wasn't in the cards. We were just good friends. I really I liked her a lot. She was like, her and I got along quite well, but the romantic interest wasn't there. We were just busy in our careers and doing different things.
Well, how did the romantic involvement spark?
Yeah, so during that time I was doing stages at Trio, and that's where Grand Achatz was prior to Alinea. And so Trio's in Evanston, which is about maybe 35 minutes outside the city. And,
wait, you're working at Charlie Trotter's and staging for Grand Achatz?
Here and there, where I could, for sure. But yeah, doing both, and he was just up and coming and doing some just amazing stuff, and I was super intrigued with the creativity, and so I would spend some time there. And it was the first year at Charlie's. I was about 8 months in, and I wasn't loving it, to be honest. I was kind of ready to move on quickly, which in hindsight, I'm really glad I didn't. But what happened is more or less Grant offered, the first time I staged, Grant offered, said, if somebody leaves here, I'd love to bring you in, and nobody left. So thank God, because everybody wanted to work for him, and he was doing incredible things. So I ended up getting through that first year at Charlie's and had some really good mentorship by some of the chefs there who sort of pulled me aside and sort of shook me a little bit and said, hey, kind of get it together. You got all the talent. We believe in what you're doing. They helped me see the brighter side of things.
So you had a crappy attitude.
I had really shit. No, I really didn't. I pushed hard, and my goals weren't being met. I think I'm pretty ambitious, and so I just wasn't getting out of it what I wanted. I wanted to give more. I wasn't quite getting it, but they helped me see the brighter side of things and the things that don't really matter in the big picture for my life and career moving forward. So there was so much to get out of it. I just need to see it in a different light.
Like
actually moving through the stations and seeing just experience. I think there are small sort of intangibles at the moment anyway that show their face later on or after maybe you leave, or like now when I've opened the restaurants now, the attitude and the way that I see business and the way that I see the kitchen running, my brain was too undeveloped at that point to see that, to really understand it. Life had to happen a little bit more. And so I think putting your time and your dues in are just they're really the most important things, more than any sort of skill or recipe you're ever going to pick up.
And then you moved on to Alinea.
So I went to Alinea.
When it opened?
Yep. So I spent 2 years at Charlie's. And then opened Alinea with that whole team, which is just an incredible team of chefs that have all, I could probably count 12 or so that have all gone on to do multiple restaurants. It was just a really cool time to be in the business. 2005, everything was exciting. The internet was still pretty young, and blogging, and it was sort of the thing. There was no Instagram.
Why'd you leave?
So I got an offer actually from Charlie to be the head chef at his Vegas restaurant. At this point, I'm the sous chef, one of the sous chefs at Alinea, and I didn't want to leave. I was enamored with Grant still in the restaurant and wanted to keep achieving. I probably would have spent the next 4 or 5 years or longer there. Who knows? They were offering a lot of money and a lot of autonomy, basically saying to me, this could be yours if you want it. And so I went to Nick and Grant and told them what they were offering. Grant was like, don't do it, in a sense, his initial reaction. And then Nick was like, the business guy, Nick was like, dude, you're crazy if you don't do it. It's an amazing offer. You should take it. And so reluctantly I did. So I ended up going back to Charlie's. And at this point, lo and behold, I'm actually starting to date Karen on the side. And then next thing we know, Charlie's offering for her to be the pastry chef at this Vegas restaurant as well. And so the timing was all kind of working towards that.
So you went to Vegas?
No, didn't go to Vegas. Actually, went back to Charlie's for about 6 months. The restaurant was dragging. I was working back at Charlie's, a sort of a glorified line cook / sous chef.
So you're working in Chicago for Charlie, waiting to open his new restaurant in Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was making more money than I could ever imagine at that point in my life, and that was nice. It wasn't. I never do things for money. I mean, it was just my person. For me, it was all about the cuisine and learning and growing as a chef. Never about money. But it was sure nice after a long, to make that kind of money. It was a game changer.
Yeah, it ain't bad to have it.
It's not bad to have it, right? But things weren't working out the way I wanted to. I knew I went back for the wrong reasons, which was part of that. I knew that my time with Charlie was over when I left the first time around. And I got, it was confirmation when I went back at that, maybe we just don't gel in that way any longer. And but I wished them tons of luck, and they had another chef in line. So I left, and lo and behold, I found this restaurant in the middle of nowhere, Virginia, which I kept passing over because, I'm like, there's no way I'm moving to this small town in Virginia.
What's the name of the town? I'm not going to try to pronounce it.
Yep, Chilhowie.
Where in Virginia? Is it? It's not the D.C. area.
It's basically an hour and 40 minutes south of Roanoke. So it's in Southwest Virginia.
So you're in the South.
Oh, it's the South.
Yeah.
It's definitely the South. But when I have a good feeling about things, I tend to follow my gut. A few meetings with the couple that own the restaurant convinced me that I should come down and do a tasting. And so Karen and I, actually, she was still working at Charlie's at the time. She was the head pastry chef at this point. And I picked her up on a Saturday night and drove 8 hours south and went to Virginia to do a tasting for them.
That's where you hit the national stage, right? The New York Times wrote about you and the restaurant. What were you doing there that got you noticed?
What did it was we started a blog. At that time, there was really no way to know about somebody like that unless you lived in a big city or national press somehow found you by pure chance, basically. We started a blog 6 months prior, and one of the New York Times writers, Christine Mielke, was coming down 81 to go do a story at Blackberry Farm, which is in 2 hours from us, a famous inn in Tennessee. She had seen the blog, heard from some other sort of food bloggers, foodies, if you want to call them that, and said they had to stop by and check us out. And so she did. I had no idea she was there. Came out because after dinner, it was a small restaurant, so I'd come out and say hi to the guests, and got to her table, and she's told me how much she enjoyed the meal, and then put her card down in the New York Times, and my heart just went whew, just like that. I couldn't believe it.
Well, was whom a good thing or a bad thing?
That was a great thing.
Oh, okay. I thought you were worried about what she was going to write.
Well, I'm always worried about what somebody's going to say about us, for sure. But I couldn't believe the opportunity. You don't move to a town of 1,400 people expecting to take over the world. We did it for a number of reasons: creative freedom and a new way of life and learning. We wanted to get back to nature and understand where food came from, and that was all part of our plan. And then, next thing you know, the New York Times are there. So it was pretty cool. We kind of rocked the boat. We went to this restaurant, which was the Townhouse Grill. We dropped the grill and then started doing food that you might see in big cities, and the locals were having none of it. I think we were all a little bit naive, including, if you ask the owners, who we're really great friends with, that we were all a little naive to think that people might like it there. And they didn't. We slowly got them back over the years, but it took some time. And then the next year, the Food and Wine magazine named me Best New Chef. And then things really started taking off from there.
You're still working for someone else at this point.
Yes. But it was a partnership, though. I mean, it really was. They gave us carte blanche to do what we wanted to, but we were working for somebody else. Yeah.
Had you been thinking, at some point I want to open a place of my own? I assume so.
I mean, not that early on. No, I mean, we spent 4 years, literally 4 years to the date. On that fourth year, we had our first child. We're starting to think about, where we want to raise our child, and do we want to be closer with family? We are in the middle of nowhere, and business was starting to slow. It was a little more erratic at that point. And so the sommelier that we were who was really a part of that place, was thinking about moving on. And so we all just started to think, well, maybe it's time to do something else.
So how'd you make it happen?
Oh, man, a lot of help. My wife's parents, they had vacation homes down in Florida, and so they would kind of venture back and forth during the winter months. And so the plan was, you come stay with us, get your affairs in order, go open your restaurant, and whatever you need, let us know in that sense. All of us sort of, again, naively thinking, we'll get this going in 8 months, something like that. It took about 3.5 years. We started venturing to Philly. So Philadelphia was our first stop. We wanted to be in the East Coast. So it was I was always thinking DC would be the spot. But we gave Philly a chance for a minute there. Didn't feel like it was the right thing. And then really spent a lot of time in DC. And during that time, we had 2 properties fall through. It was basically rock bottom at that point. I thought at that point, after 3 years and this restaurant falling through, the landlord sort of pulled the rug out from under us, which is another long story for another podcast, and $25,000 in the hole after we'd spent our own money for getting things going for this space we thought we had. I thought it was over at that point. Maybe I just need to get a job and just figure things out, take a break for a while. During this time, I was taking odd jobs around and literally getting my car, and I had friends in Virginia because we were living in Philadelphia at this point outside. So I would drive 4 hours south, stay at my friend's inn because he was the partner at this inn, and I would work in the kitchen and make a paycheck. And I'd basically live there for 3 days, and then I'd get back in my car, make a little money, go back up north, go to DC, spend time looking at spaces. With Townhouse, I back up here a little bit, we had an inn called Riverstead as well. So we had Townhouse, the restaurant, and then we had a bed and breakfast, two-room bed and breakfast, restored Victorian home that the owners of the restaurant did. And I asked them, I said, hey, would you ever consider me coming back down there and doing a sort of a pop-up once a month? That was sort of the crazy idea, just to make some money and keep the ball rolling, keep the energy up with the dream. And so we did that for 1.5 years. We did that. And then the Washington Post came down, a 5-hour drive south, did a 2-page article, which really kind of just kept things going for us. And at this point already, I've already met now my current business partner. He was super impressed that we kept things going. And about 1.5 years into this sort of pop-up, he said to me and Karen, he's like, why don't you just give Chicago a try again? Why don't, because he lived in Chicago. We had connections here with the local chef community. He had connections here with a lot of potential investors here. We came back. I spent 1 day here looking at spaces. I got a broker. We spent the whole day looking, and I'm like, it's like same old, same old. And I was going out to dinner with some friends, and a buddy of mine down the street from where we are now, Smyth and Loyalist, said, hey, Johnny, I got this friend. He's got a space right around the corner from me. You got to come see it. It's super cool. And I'm like, no, man, I'm going out to dinner tonight. I can't make it. Not going to do it. He said, Johnny, I'm telling you, you got to come see it. So I met him reluctantly in the space, walked in, and it was it. I knew it. As soon as we walked in the space, I'm like, this is it. And the rest is history.
How quickly were you a success?
People were psyched that we were coming. We had a little bit of a following at that point. So there was some hype around us. We were busy. We opened 2 restaurants. So the bottom floor is Loyalist, which is a completely different restaurant than Smyth. And so people thought we were a little crazy to do both, especially about the same time. So we opened Loyalist 1 month prior to opening Smyth. Loyalist was actually quite busy right off the bat. And then we got a really favorable write-up by the Chicago Tribune, which helped us stay really busy for a while. Now, when I say busy, we were busier than our projections were showing, right, at that point. Compared to now, we weren't that busy, but we were busy enough.
Well, a slow build isn't bad in terms of finding your sea legs, is it?
It worked out great, actually. We definitely had a lot of work to do. There's no doubt about it.
In what respect?
In growing the vision of what the food is, who I am as a chef, which is still continuing to evolve. But yeah, we were just work. I mean, we didn't know anything about running a restaurant. We didn't know nothing about running a business. We kind of, we faked it till we made it. That was really kind of it. And along the way, we kept our heads down to make sure that the experience we were giving and the food we were giving was the best we could do. And we worked our asses off to make it happen. But again, we got the Chicago Tribune did, a write-up on Smyth and Loyalist. And in the article was a burger that beats Al Cheval, which at the time, Al Cheval was considered the best burger in Chicago and maybe one of the best in the country. And then we got 4 stars for Smyth, which is the highest rating for the Tribune.
It's an interesting plan to pay for one location and open 2 that are decidedly different. How'd you come up with that?
We always knew that even with the space in DC, we wanted to have a sort of a casual offshoot of it, so it could be a little more accessible. We also thought about, hey, what if we're not busy all the time? Filling seats in fine dining, it would be helpful. We never imagined having 2 restaurants that were completely different. We thought we might do more of a casual spinoff of the food we do. Come get your small tasting menu at the bar or something like that, But this space dictated that it could be done. And even Karen thought it was crazy. I called her that night after we saw the space, and I'm like, we're going to open 2 restaurants. And she's like, what the hell are you talking about? And so, but doing 2 was just one of the best things we ever did. They've really helped support each other over the years.
Why is the burger so good there?
I don't know. I mean, it's good.
Excuse me, you're the owner and chef, so give me a hint.
It's an honest burger. I wanted something that was very, reminded me more of a diner style burger, but I also chefed it up in a sense where I found great balance in it. We bought the bun and we bought the cheese, but we made the sauce and we ground all the meat for it. And we made the pickles for it. Grinding our own meat, finding the right mix, the right blend was, I think, key to it. What's
it a mix of?
Chuck and short rib.
And you came to that after trial and error? How many did you go through?
Not really that many, to be honest. It was shocking how few it took. And when I ate it, I knew it was it. Karen thought, this is not it. She's like, no, you got to keep going. This is not the one. I'm like, this is the one. I know it's the one. And I don't win many arguments, but thank God I won that one.
Okay, so downstairs, you're doing burgers. What else?
Burgers. We're doing great. We had this really young, talented chef that came and worked with us, who's actually running some kitchens down in Nashville right now, and doing amazing stuff. And the food was kind of we didn't know what the hell we were doing, to be honest. I didn't know. I knew what I wanted at the time, but the chef that was running helped me run the kitchen, because it was impossible for me to really run both at this point, while I'm trying to, learn how to run a business and run 2 kitchens. So he wanted to do. He had just come from California, and we wanted to do something more really kind of vegetable focused or from farm focused in a way. So the food was very pure, but then we had this burger. So it really didn't kind of mix in a way. It was kind of a confused restaurant for a little while there. And I knew in the back of my mind, I wanted to do something more French focused, like more of a bistro style food. I really love that style of food, but didn't have the chef to run it. And so it was really COVID that helped us do it. Once we shut down, we reopened and sort of reconcept. The burger's the same. We still have that, but it just integrated more into the menu and made the whole restaurant feel a little more cohesive and give it more of a stamp of like, this is who we are and this is what we do.
What about the food at Smyth? I think this quote is from the Michelin Guide. If not, it's from somebody else. Their cooking is bold and often pushes boundaries, all the while impressing. Sheer creativity is applied to seasonal produce, some of which comes from their garden. Accurate?
I'd say pretty darn accurate. Yeah, it's evolved like everything in life. When we first opened, we actually partnered with a farm, a 22-acre farm about an hour south of the restaurant that grew exclusively for the restaurants, and that was it.
Are you still using their product?
No, we no longer work with them after the pandemic. Things happened over time and sort of changed the direction of the food a little bit, or re-evolve it in some ways. It was amazing working with them, working with the product, but the product was constantly, we get 2 weeks of this and a week of that, and then 2 months full of cucumbers, and so you're like, your creativity was at full strength at that point, and which was great. And it was I think helped us grow a lot and in our creativity and what's possible. But it was very hard to be consistent. I can cook off the cuff, it's my ideas and my mind, creating it, but it's harder for me to explain and to have them feel the same way about the food when it's constantly changing night in and night out.
You're not as hung up on it's got to be local as many other chefs.
Well, I consider local at this point the United States. I think that using the entire country as local. Now, it depends on what we get. Like, I don't get basil and parsley from California. I might get some amazing products like incredible avocados or fresh almonds or things that I can't grow here in the Midwest or can't be grown. And then actually in just this recent years, we've started to use Florida products, which I hadn't done and wanted to do, but it didn't feel right bringing stuff, using a mango from Florida and having a farm. The story just didn't connect for obvious reasons. And so that's kind of helped us broaden. We have the incredible country where you can go down south and use coconuts and mangoes and all these incredible, cherry moya from Florida, or you can go to the Northwest and get Dungeness crab at the East Coast and have blue crab. You have two different types of sea urchin from either side of the coast. And so for us to really sustain and continue the creativity, looking at the U.S. as a little broader really helped us, I think, evolve and get to the next level.
Well, describe your cooking at Smyth.
Yeah, it's a hard one to describe. It's going to sound a little cliche here in the beginning, but it all starts with product. And for us, product isn't just, the piece of fish that, was caught by this guy with a single rod and reel. That is part of it, but it goes well beyond that. To me, product is every single solitary thing that goes into making that dish is thought out. What's the vinegar? Are we using just some random vinegar that we think is tasty from France? Or are we championing, actually one of the guys makes vinegar in Virginia, used to work for me at Townhouse and does an incredible array of various ones, to us making our own vinegars and to really creating a pantry full of preserves and various products, to the salts that we use, we don't buy nut oils. We press all of our own nuts. So all the things are really
Why?
to the China. Well, it tastes better. It tastes explosive. You can't beat it. Plus it's also the personal honesty about it all. I think, I think it's a really honest way to cook. It's true craftsmanship at that point. And plus it also was our time in Virginia. We got close to product. We understood where wild foliage comes from and all the foraging that we did, to working with local farmers, meat to vegetable and fruit, growers. So once you have that, once you experience that, it's almost impossible to go back to the easy way or the more convenient way of cooking.
Take me through your menu. I know you have a basic menu for $325.
They're both pretty much the same. At the extended one, we just do some extra courses that are usually ones that we're kind of working on, new ideas, new concepts.
So for the extra $100, I get to see you work out what's next.
Well, yeah, but they're worked out pretty good. We don't experiment too much. And really, to be honest, the first 7 years, even up through getting the 3 stars, we were basically just working dishes out the entire time. So, we're not like a lot of restaurants where we come up with a signature and just kind of sit back and go, this is perfect, and we're just going to hang back. Our success has been gained by us kind of living on the edge, where things, we walk one way or the other, you could fall off. So you got to be focused and you got to be on it. And it creates an energy and to the food and to the team producing it from front and back. And that you can't replicate by sort of just kind of doing the same old. Now, that being said, since COVID, we've just tried to have a few more things that are a little bit more solid. my ambition is still high, but my tolerance and people's attitudes towards change and evolving all the time have changed. It's a little bit different now.
People after COVID more interested in the comfort of a familiar dish?
Yeah, I think people want things to be a little bit more, I wouldn't say the adventure is out, but I would say that you're not seeing the same, the cooks have evolved, so the ones that when we first opened the restaurant have maybe kind of gone on to do different things, and the younger generations are coming up, and you're not seeing the same sort of excitement for that sort of constant change to push and to be in difficult sort of situations day in and day out. And, as we grow more into a business, I have to balance the two a little bit and be realistic.
Well, what is the food at Smyth? I've seen in print, it's been described as influenced by Scandinavia, by restaurants like Noma. Another write-up talked about Japanese influence.
Well, I would say, if anything, it's probably more influenced by Charlie Trotter than most. Scandinavian ideas, I think, are maybe the idea that we make a lot of our own or have a lot of our own china made by a certain potter, to some of the ferments and techniques that we've learned along the way because of a restaurant like Noma that we've been able to explore and then even sort of take and do our own thing with and create new ideas that I haven't seen around. So, but I think the food we do runs in that Scandinavian sort of line or Japanese line. But really, Charlie was doing a lot of that stuff well before, which is product-driven, a focus on lightness and purity, honesty. And so it's always been that. If you look back at a lot of his cookbooks, the dishes we do are quite similar. Maybe not exactly the way they look, but the recipes are really in really in the same vein, I think. So the food is just try not to over manipulate things to the point where it's just an idea for an idea's sake. It's all about bringing the most out of each product, watching the seasons as they kind of come and go, and being on top of it. When a product's starting to dwindle, it comes off the menu. We're on to something else immediately.
You talk about simplicity.
Yeah.
So here's a description of one of your dishes from Condé Nast Traveler. Lobster gelée with Maine uni, melon ceviche, and bergamot oil. What the hell is that?
I have no idea. We must have been on some other planet that day.
Okay, the sun-choked tart with a caramelized salted egg yolk custard.
It all sounds crazy, but really it's not. Eating melon and citrus with lobster is a pretty kind of, I don't know, even Frenchy sort of concoction. You put a little whipped cream on there, or a Bavarois or a mousse or something like that, and you've got a light appetizer. And somewhere in Paris, what it is experience. It's me doing a lot of research, eating around Europe a lot, to working in great restaurants, to developing my food and working really hard at it, and allowing it to be honest. Like a lot of the times I come in, maybe I have like rough ideas, but it's just getting to work behind the stove, putting things together, eating, tasting, constantly thinking about texture. And then sometimes that can formulate where things go. And I'm always trying to think about the guest experience. Like, what are they going to feel when they eat it? Less about like, what idea am I going to sort of formulate and blow their minds with? I go, how is this experience with this bite? And then what's the next one? And then two more down the road. It's about just an honest, creative look at, and then also I want to challenge myself. I want to think to myself, well, what could be done? And usually it comes together with flavor. I go, these two things remind me of this one thing I had. And that's where the experience comes in. That's where all the 20 plus years of muscle and food memories and taste memories and luckily I have a really good memory when it comes to food. Like I can recite menus I had 15 years ago at various restaurants, like to the ingredients in each dish. It's intuition based thinking and cooking and using all my senses along the way.
What's next?
We've been toying around with another concept for a while now.
Want to give me a sneak peek?
We got a few ideas rolling around our heads. We don't know quite yet. I was looking down in Florida for a minute there thinking, well, maybe I can do a small little tasting menu, sort of counter-seeing restaurant doing my version of sort of a Japanese, kaiseki menu or even a sushi style experience, but just done in our Smyth way with Florida produce and fruits and seafood coming from that area to, Italian, because my wife's Italian. So we've been kicking that idea around for a while as well.
What's your death row meal?
Whoa, death row meal. Okay. You're going to laugh. Probably a fruit de mer, so a big seafood tower.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, quite large with quite an array of cooked and raw shellfish, a side of frites, and a good bottle of champagne. That's my happiness.
So do you feel pressure to repeat that 3-star rating?
Yes and no. Yeah, for sure. The pressure is, but we're always putting pressure on ourselves anyway. So I don't look at it every morning going, we got to keep the stars. We got to keep the stars.
But in the back of your mind, you really want to keep those stars.
Oh, for sure. Once you get to a certain point, and I don't want to go backwards. I'm ready to keep going forward. We're trying to push the creativity further and further and further. We got here because we took a chance by constantly evolving the menu, constantly trying new things, being ourselves, and people like us. And so there you go. It worked out. So why change now? Why keep going for it?
Chef, first of all, congratulations. And secondly, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thanks for your time, David. I really appreciate it.
3 Michelin Star winning chef John Shields here on Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page, and I'll see you next time.